I'm Larren Peart. I'm originally from Montego Bay. Grew up there, spent most of my years there, except for when I went to the greatest all boys institution in the world, Monroe. At Monroe, them used to call them the buckle police. So buckle police is the person, in my case, me, who would go around and collect the bottles to sell back to the tuck shop. So under my bunk bed was always beer bottles. Yeah, and I used to sell sweets and them. So I used to give the day boys money to buy snacks and then I'd sell it and whatnot. School wasn't my thing. I am one of those people who, like the other day, I was looking back at my report cards. All of them said, Larren has so much potential if only he would apply himself. When I left Monroe at fifth form at 15, and it was determined to not go back to sixth form. And my mother was like, well, the only thing you can do is go to art school. So that's what I did. I went to Caribbean Institute of Technology in Montego Bay and studied programming and web development for a year. I didn't like it either, but my parents, of course, were very concerned about my direction or lack thereof. I think also because of my, the quote unquote independent and maybe rebel ways from Monroe. When I went back home under my parents' house, having been an independent person, my father and I, weren't really getting along, right? Well, maybe that's a strong way to put it, but in my mind, I wasn't getting along with him. My dad is very cool, and I was like, I'm going to move out, and I started looking for jobs in all over the place, and I found one in Kingston, and at the age of 16, going 17, I moved out of Montego Bay and moved to Kingston. So the job was a traveling job because I had to travel all over the island to fix or set up these systems in pharmacies, etc. And which meant that I had to have a vehicle. So of course I didn't have a vehicle early on. So I used to take bus to go all the way to South to do the work. They didn't know that I didn't have a car, right? That's the first thing, because the job required me to have a car, and I told them I had a car. So I had to figure out how to go and get the work done. So it was a lot of, actually, this is the first time I'm talking about this ever because I just wiped it from my memory. But it was just a lot of just hustling in taxi to go and do the job to get to the customer on time, wherever in the island it was. When I finally got a car, it was a little putt-putt, and I used to call that car Surprise, because if I ever got to where I was going without it breaking down, it would have been a surprise. I have a whole heap of stories about that car, the whole Tercel. I worked really hard, and as an employee, if the one thing you look forward to is Christmas bonus, right? So I'd eventually become a manager, and I was entitled to, I think, either 3 weeks or 4 weeks bonus, right? And I only ended up getting 1 week bonus. And it was the most demotivating experience for me, right? And at the same time, I was reading this book called 48 Laws of Power, right? And there's it's literally 48 laws. And one of the laws says something about if you dine at another man's table, then you're going to be forever dependent on him or something like that. And, I was like, well, I'm not going to let another Christmas catch me here, just depending on a company's discretion just to give me a little bonus. And I promised myself that the December 2014 was going to catch me in that position. And then I started working at 17. This was now 29, almost 30. I'd literally grew up there. I spent a long time there, me and them good, and I felt slighted. Just to be clear, in hindsight, now that I own a business, I understand how these decisions work. So I'm not wronging them for that. I don't know what the financial position was at the time. So yeah, so I was like, well, boy, I'm going to have to figure out something. I was doing fairly well from a salary standpoint at AIS, relatively, right? But that was only because I was there for so long, right? I didn't think that if I'd gone and worked for somebody else and starting over, I would have had the same, trajectory. So, it was entrepreneurship or nothing. AIS processes health insurance claims, right? So several occasions, I'd be in the server room looking at the transactions coming from pharmacies, right? And I would, for example, see that flu medication is being dispensed a lot in Ocherius, right? And then just anecdotally looking at the data, I would see that the same flu medication would start with the dispense in Montego Bay a week later, as an example, right? So what that meant was that it took a week for the flu to spread from Ocherius or St. Anne to Montego Bay, right? And I'd always call my father and say, yo, Pops, stock up on vitamin C because the flu will reach you. He would never do it and end up catching the flu, but that's a whole other story. That was when I realized, well, this data thing, just having insights and having access to data is a big deal. A friend of mine by the name of Lydia Osborne, also from Mobay, she was in the research space, market research space. And I have another friend, Douglas Clark and Roberto Samuda. One of them knew a party promoter that needed some data to be collected. We were like, all right, well, we can do it. We'll just go and collect the data for you. And long story short, that's the genesis of how I got into the market research space, which is still data, right? Collecting data at parties for the promoters so that their sponsors could get a profile of the patrons at the party. When I left AIS now though, it was no serious business time. I had to hustle, I had to get serious about the business. And Kimala Bennett from the lab had approached me. She had seen us collect some data somewhere, I don't remember where it was. And we were using tablets at the time, and we still use tablets, but we're the first company to use tablets. And she wanted us to be a part of what she was doing on the agency side. So her and I bought out Douglas and Roberto from Focus Research, and Kemal and I started this other company called Bluedot. We landed a contract, I think, with Honeybun was our first client. It was either Honeybun or Ruby's, but I think it was Honeybun, big up me strong. And I had to register the company. I had a whole list of complicated names like Data Decisioning and Strategy Limited and just a whole bunch of complicated names, right? And it did stress me out. So I went to this bar and I was sitting down and I was drinking a Red Stripe, right? I don't drink Red Stripe. I don't know why I was drinking Red Stripe. Maybe in a bout of tipsiness, I don't know. Just looking at the bottle and I was looking at Red Stripe, right? And I was like, what on earth does Red Stripe mean? It's so nebulous. It don't mean anything. And I literally went from red stripe, red square, green circle, and ended up at Bluedot. And that's it, I'm sorry, I don't have people expect to have some deep, profound reason or meaning behind the name, but I don't. I tell these stories all the time about, one, I was just very intentional about building the brand. So I used to go to places where I know corporate people were. So I used to just go to Crew and just sit down, can't afford the food, but just go to Crew and sit down and try to meet people, right? If I order something and you have to give them your name or whatever, I don't give them my name, I say Bluedot. And then I used to there's one particular restaurant I used to go where, and a lot of people, corporate people used to go, and I used to go on I never hear them calling out Bluedot and just make them call out Bluedot, right? So it was very intentional, Today is one of the only days when I'm not branded. I'm always branded. My glasses have on Blue Dot on it. My bag have Blue Dot. Like, just very intentional about branding and building the brand. We're in the business of decision making, but data-driven decision making for our clients. We help our clients to make better decisions with data or insights. So that can either come from market research. So, we do a lot of work for companies who want to understand who their customers are, what their profile is. We're heavily invested in neuroscience, right? And consumer neuroscience is essentially trying to figure out on a very biological level or biometric level what makes an individual tick. When we're testing commercials, for example, for our clients, we measure heart rate, pulse, and brain activity, and we track eye movement throughout the commercial. So I know in a TV commercial where people are looking. So from a product placement standpoint, are they seeing the branding here or the logo here? And then, because we're measuring emotions, we can measure up to 32 emotions. Was there a point in the commercial that there was a negative association, right? So we would work with the ad agencies, and we give them, a millisecond by millisecond breakdown of what emotion is being evoked while the respondents are watching the commercial, where they're seeing, and then we'll essentially be able to say to them, delete the scene because it had negative emotions, or extend the scene because people seem to like it, or put the branding over here because that's where people are looking. So we get very deep into what we do and the insights that we provide. Right now we're doing customer satisfaction surveys for NCB, JMB, and NWC, right? So literally I have a team of 200 people, 200 interviewers who are on the phone calling NWC customers and asking them, how do you rate our service, in a very basic way. There's 60 other questions, but that's what we're doing. And then we develop these reports that we give to our clients, and they're able to understand what the lay of the land is and what to improve and where they need to, spot opportunities and trends and problems. I think we're doing okay. I think we're relatively successful. I think we're top of mind and number one in Jamaica now. From a market research standpoint, I think when companies think about research, I think about Bluedot. And that has come from our polls. Our polling has helped a lot with that, so we're very accurate in our polls. Half of my team is now in Trinidad, so we have a Trinidad team, and we'll be rolling out the Trinidad arm of the business soon, and we're also about to be in Guyana. And we're just trying to grow across the region as much as possible. Challenges, too numerous to mention. I mean, I have, if anybody has been following me on Instagram long enough, they would have been around when I had to pawn my car and my TV and my fridge just to make payroll. And I say it all the time, you never know stress until you can't make payroll. One of the promises I made to myself as an employee is that I would never, ever, ever have to give anybody a story about them salary. Right? It's a promise that I make to my staff to this day. My best friend contextualized it for me the other day, and it was pretty profound. He asked me if I could trade places with myself when I was still working that 9 to 5, relatively no stress. Would I do it? And the answer is no. Because there's also a lot of upside. There's also a lot of reward. Outside of, money, there's impact. There's impact. I'm very big on giving back. I could spend a whole 10 hours talking to you about everything that I'm trying to do. So, as you know, COVID hit Jamaica on the 10th of March, 2020. A couple of days after that, the Minister of Health was on TV saying that Jamaica only had 35 ventilators in the island. And that was very frightening to me. And I called up all of the smartest people I knew. And long story short, We started Citizens Response Jamaica, and we ended up building our own ventilators here. We ended up having the largest 3D printing setup probably in the Caribbean. We 3D printed thousands of face shields for healthcare workers, tailored thousands of masks, built locally the testing booths that are still in some hospitals now. So these testing booths where you see the doctor in a booth and they put their hands through the gloves. We built those. We manufactured the first medical grade gowns probably in the Caribbean locally. To put it succinctly, I don't want to migrate. And if I ever end up migrating, I want to be able to say I tried. I tried to make Jamaica better than it was before it come to that. So, I do everything I can. Some of it is announced, some of it is not announced. I am now a part of Project Star, which is a massive social intervention program by the PSOJ. Jamaica has the second highest number of social intervention programs in the world, and we also have the most churches in the world, right? And we have the second highest crime rate. So something is obviously wrong. It means that those social intervention programs have not worked, So Project Star is a reimagined look at social intervention and taking it from the actual root of what the problem is, straight through to community development, employment, and that's a holistic approach to social intervention. And I'm very happy that I was allowed to be a part of that from the get-go. Quick example is just looking at the data, you realize that wherever there's a street light that's not working, then there's a higher propensity for sexual assault to happen, right? Just an example of just how using data to have informed decisions. So Project Star now getting that data will go in and ensure that the streetlights are fixed in the community. I am both excited and fearful about AI. From the excitement standpoint, it gives us a lot of opportunity. So AI will make a lot of our jobs easier. Whereas AI will do a lot of good, people are bad, and it will be used maliciously. It already is. There are people using it to scam people already. You can clone somebody's voice. A lot of the banks in the UK and North America use voice recognition, to identify you when you call them, right? People cloning voices and thieving money from people's bank account already. So Jamaica is not ready for what's going to happen. The thing to note with AI is that every job that can be automated will be automated. It just makes common sense. It's capitalism. That's what any business person is going to do. Heart also has a very big role to play in Jamaica, right? Not for AI and anything else, but plumbers, carpenters, welders, electricians, etc. Skilled labor is going to be flipped to being the most valuable skill sets, right, in the future. And when I say future, I don't mean 2040. I mean, I'd say within 5 to 10 years. Your job will not be lost to AI, but somebody who understands how to use AI. So prompt engineering is a very essential skill set now, understanding how to write prompts, and companies will need people who understand how to construct the perfect prompts in order to get the output that you need. Probably by the time this comes out, I will announce that we have signed with the Boston Institute of Analytics to be the local Caribbean franchisee. BIA, they're the #1 training institute in the world for data analytics and AI, and we'll be offering upskilling the workforce in Jamaica and the Caribbean to be able to take advantage of AI, because that's a huge gap. I believe that a lot of jobs are going to be displaced eventually. I'm very concerned for the BPO sector. I have seen myself AI. I've been to 3 conferences this year in Canada, Boston, and in Toronto, Boston, and Austin, Texas. And I've seen myself AI that is pretty hard to distinguish between that and a human talking to you, right? And I just know it's just a matter of time before it's perfected. Quite a few of the easier jobs in the BPO sector will be replaced very soon with AI. So BIA is not there's not much money to be made from it for us at Bluedot, right? But it will allow companies to upskill their staff in AI and data. And also I'm hoping to create an avenue for the displacement that's coming for jobs, for those people to be able to upskill themselves and then be able to market themselves, not just locally, but internationally.